It's time! Pre-release of a new set is here, and I am so jazzed for at Karlov Manor, a set so exciting that I can't even say its name or the YouTube algorithm will get mad. So instead, I'm just gonna say Markovs at Karlov Manor. Because, after all, why shouldn't there be Markovs at Karlov Manor? They got almond paths, don't they? What are omen paths? And of course, a new set means we've got lots more Magic the Gathering products. Between the 4 Commander precons from Markovs at Karlov Manor to the 6 legendary creatures in the Markov Manor / Clue crossover, that's a real thing, and there are a ton of new legendary creatures lining up to headline your next Commander deck. But there's also a ton of new legendary creatures in the main set that can make a strong case for the position of your Supreme Commander as well. For this video, I've compiled a list of the top 5 best new commanders from Markovs at Karlov Manor, legendary creatures that I just can't wait to build around. Now, please note, all 5 of these creatures are legends from the main set, so don't go running to the comments to complain and tell me that I did Colonel Mustard dirty by not talking about what a great new commander Colonel Mustard is. For Magic the Gathering. Colonel Mustard is a Magic card now. Every day we stray further from God. And speaking of straying further from God, Ravnica Remastered. It's on sale at Card Kingdom, sponsor of this video. Ravnica Remastered draft booster packs are just $3.99 each. Even I can't complain about that, but Card Kingdom's competitors might, because at only $139.99 per draft booster box, those prices are just so low, you'd think they were the real murderers at Markov Manor. The prices murdered by the savings. This time, one of Tristani's dryads isn't just slashing bodies, they're slashing prices. At Card Kingdom. Just go to www.cardkingdom.com/TCC and you'll see these great deals. $3.99 for draft booster packs of Ravnica Remastered. $139.99 for draft booster boxes. Collector booster packs at only $18.99. That's less than you're paying for standard ones. Collector booster boxes of Ravnica Remastered at $219.99. Ravnica Remastered selling in some cases for less than the new standard set. We got there, fam. But this sale is only happening until Monday morning at 9 a.m. And while you're over at www.cardkingdom.com/TCC, be sure to check out my favorite Magic the Gathering accessories or just browse Card Kingdom's extensive card library and buy the singles you want for the decks you need to play. Thank you, Card Kingdom, for violently taking a knife to Ravnica Remastered prices and bringing them down to the realm of the affordable, and of course for sponsoring this channel. For I don't know, I think it's been like 8 years or something now. cardkingdom.com/TCC. Our list begins with everyone's favorite murderous e-girl, Massacre Girl, Known Killer. This edition of Massacre Girl is a 4/4 legendary creature, human assassin for 2 generic and 2 black mana. Massacre Girl, Known Killer has menace and grants all creatures you control Wither. Remember Wither, kids? No? Wither is a mechanic from the shadowy side of Lorwyn Block, Shadowmoor and Eventide. It's a bit like Infect, except without the part of Infect that made it disgustingly broken. Creatures you control do not deal damage to players in the form of poison counters, but they do deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. Functionally, this means that the damage you do to their creatures in combat sticks around after the turn is over. It doesn't wear off the way normal damage does. So a creature shrunk by Wither remains shrunken until it gets +1/+1 counters added to it to recoup its lost stats. Wither is a super cool and evocative mechanic that hasn't been printed on a new card in any set, standard or otherwise, since its second iteration in Eventide. As a quick aside, I just love that Wizards of the Coast has started bringing back these old mechanics as one-offs in standard sets. Cards like Massacre Girl and Sanguine Evangel from Lost Caverns of Ixalan are awesome, and the fact that they have these older keywords makes a game like Magic, with a 30-year history full of mechanics that don't get used again, feel all the more cohesive. But that's not all there is happens to Massacre Girl because she has another ability as well, a triggered ability. Whenever a creature an opponent dies, if it has 1 or fewer toughness, draw a card. This is a fantastic ability to follow up giving your creatures Wither. Not only does Wither leave your opponent's creatures smaller each time they engage in combat with your creatures, but it also means that any creature that dies in combat versus one of your creatures will have less than 1 toughness as well, since the game state notices that it has a bunch of -1/-1 counters on it before it left the battlefield. Anytime your creatures trade with an opponent's creature, you get a card. Massacre Girl, known Killer, lends herself to a variety of strategies. There are cards like Nest of Scarabs and Necro Skitter that specifically care about -1/-1 counters. Zombie tokens from Endless Ranks of the Dead or Ghoul Caller Gissa become way harder to block if blocking them has lasting consequences. Make them take those bad blocks with a card like Strixhaven's Stadium. What about giving Massacre Girl some help with static shrinking effects like Knight of Souls Betrayal or Kavrak the Spiteful? Then clean up the board, draw a million cards, and maybe knock a player out with Massacre Girl's favorite pet, Massacre Worm. Or what about non-combat Wither damage? Creatures with ping effects like Walking Ballista and Orcish Bowmasters get way more powerful when they start dealing out -1/-1 counters. Oh my god, we did it, everyone! We broke Orcish Bowmasters! Yay! However you decide to build her, you'll end up with a killer deck with Massacre Girl, known Killer. Number 4 on the list of top commanders from Markov's at Karlov Manor is a new, caked-up wall commander, the Pride of Clade. This big booty croc is a 2/15 legendary creature, crocodile elk turtle with defender for 10 generic mana and a green. But don't let that casting cost fool you. Cheeks McGee over here has a cost reduction ability. It costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. That means if you have like 2 walls in play, it's only going to cost a single G. The Pride of Clade also has an activated ability, of course. For 2 generic and double blue until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0, gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness, and can attack as though it didn't have defender. Now, you might think the Pride of Clade isn't giving you anything that unique. After all, Arcades has long been the Walls Matter go-to commander. But actually, the Pride of Clade has a few traits that make this crocodile elk turtle outshine the old strategist. First of all, the cost reduction ability is huge upside. In a Walls deck, you will virtually never have to pay anything more than a single green mana to get this guy in play. And because the cost reduction counts toward commander tax, over the course of the game you'll get to keep recasting Pride of the Clade for a single G as you keep playing more and more defenders. Secondly, while both Arcades and Pride draw you cards, Arcades cannot possibly keep up with the sheer volume of cards that the Pride of the Clade draws. I mean, it's right there on the card. If you connect with Pride of the Clade after activating its ability, targeting itself, you get 15 new cards. Now imagine you also gave him Double Strike with a pair of brass knuckles. That's 30 cards. And if you activated Assault Formation first, that's also 30 commander damage. That's a 1-hit or double hit KO that also nets you, I cannot stress this enough, 30 freaking cards. Now, you'll have to find a way to make him unblockable, but come on. You're in blue. You got blue cards in your deck. This is not an unsolvable riddle. Even if you're using Pride of the Clade as a value engine and not trying to kill an opponent out of nowhere, he's great at that too. 2/3 of the best cards in an Arcades deck still apply here, such as Tetsuko to give your non-Pride walls unblockable, even after they get pumped by Pride of the Clade. And of course, you can play Axebane Guardian plus Freed from the Real for infinite mana, and find it every game thanks to the volume of cards you draw. Pride of the Clade gives you all the value you could ask for out of a Walls commander, with the added benefit of a cheaper 2-color mana base. What's not to love? The number 3 best new commander from Markov's at Karlov Manor is a sweet new Gruul commander that seamlessly connects Morph with Disguise. Yarus, Roar of the Old Gods. Yarus, Roar of the Old Gods is a 4/4 legendary centaur druid for 2 generic and a Gruul mana. Yarus grants all of your other creatures haste. Whenever one or more face-down creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Whenever a face-down creature you control dies, return it to the battlefield face-down under its owner's control if it's a permanent card, then turn it face up. That third ability is a bit confusingly worded, but basically it just means if you manifested, or cloaked, an instant or sorcery card to make it into a face-down 2/2 creature, then you don't get to bring it back with Yarus' ability. This card is awesome. Very straightforward. Morph or disguise big creatures and/or manifest or cloak permanents, then attack your opponents with great haste. If they don't block your 2/2s, you get to draw cards. If they do, your 2/2 dies and comes back again stronger, plus with its when flipped face up ability if it's a morph or disguise creature. Your Yarus deck will of course want all the best morph and disguise cards in Gruul colors, plus all the best morph and disguise payoffs. You'll also want some big permanents that you can manifest or cloak, and ways to manifest or cloak them. Ugin's Mastery from the Commander Masters Commander deck is a perfect card for this, both because it lets you manifest and because it's itself a permanent that can be manifested then flipped face up later with Yarus' ability. Scroll of Fate is another great option, giving you greater control over what exactly you are manifesting. Whisperwood Elemental is a house in this deck, gradually increasing your face-down creature count and providing you with insurance in case of a wrath. Speaking of wraths, Yarus also triggers this third ability when face-down creatures die from a wrath, even if Yarus dies along with them. This is one of the absolute best decks in Gruul colors at utilizing a board wipe, because they are effectively going to be entirely one-sided. Pack your decks with all the best red board wipes and time them for when you have a ton of face-down creatures ready to flip over. If you have the mana to do so, you can even recast Yarus from the command zone, post Sweeper, and give all the creatures haste, attacking your now totally defenseless opponents. Talk about a combo. You'll want to make sure your deck plays as few non-permanent cards as possible, so you can really make the most out of Yarus' third ability. But that shouldn't be too difficult in Gruul colors. Heck, the only permanence clause is still less of a restriction than Nikia of the old ways. Yarus is a sweet new take on a Gruul monsters deck. The card puts your opponent in a real dilemma. Do I give this Gruul opponent more gas, or do I make their creature even better? Making your opponents have to do all the thinking is exactly what Gruul is all about. But what is the number 2 best new commander from Markov's at Karlov Manor? Well, the number 2 best new commander from Markov's at Karlov Manor is another face-down creatures payoff commander, but in entirely different colors, with an entirely different source of face-down creatures. It's Etrata, Deadly Fugitive, a 1/4 legendary vampire assassin creature for 1 generic and Dimir mana with Death Touch. Etrata gives face-down creatures you control an activated ability for 2, a blue, and a black. Turn this creature face up. If you can't exile it, then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. But however will you get face-down creatures, you might very astutely ask? Well, to that I say, keep reading the card. It'll explain. Whenever an assassin you control deals combat damage to an opponent, cloak the top card of that player's library. Cloak, of course, being manifests with Ward 2. Wait a minute, a manifest with Ward? Power creep is out of control! There are, if I've done my math correctly, about 1 billion quote-unquote Mr. Steel Yo cards commanders in Dimir colors. But Etrata, Friendly Fugitive, is certainly a sweet twist on the genre. Put cool assassins into play and make them even harder to block with Whisper Silk cloaks and keys to the city. God, who would ever give an assassin a key to the city? What a mistake for your enemies. Then start turning them sideways and assembling an army of your opponent's cards. Except face down on the battlefield like it's 2012 and they're planking. Remember planking? Ask your parents. If they're permanents, you can flip them face up at any time for 4 mana. If they're spells, you can cast them anytime for, that's right, 4 mana. See? Reading the rest of the card wasn't so hard. Keep in mind you can also cloak or manifest your own cards and flip them face up with Etrata. If the creature already has morph or disguise, you don't really need Etrata's help to flip them face up, which means you likely want to cloak or manifest cards that don't already have morph or disguise. So you can manifest or cloak a Phage, the untouchable, then flip her face up after blockers to eliminate an opponent in one swing. Or if you'd prefer, set up a massive instant or sorcery face down and then cast it at instant speed for 4 mana. Etrata is the perfect kind of commander, the one that points you in a general direction, but gives you plenty of room to iterate as you see fit. So what is the number 1 best new commander from this set? Well, if any time travelers from 2019 are watching this video, then hold on to your socks because I'm about to knock them off. The number 1 commander from Markov's at Karlov Manor is mono white. I know! But did you know? Well, now you will, as we take a look. Delney, Streetwise Lookout, is a legendary 2/2 mono-white human scout for 2 generic and a white mana. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. It feels like 30 years of white weenie creature design has led us to this very moment, the White Weenie Commander to end all white weenie commanders. Much like a few other cards on this list, Delney asks you to build a deck that does a very straightforward thing. Put creatures with power 2 or less into play, attack with them evasively, and reap the rewards of a pile of doubled triggered abilities. Keep in mind that while Delney clearly encourages you to attack with your little guys, she does not require the triggered abilities to have anything to do with combat. Enter the battlefield abilities like Recruiter of the Guard, abilities that trigger off of your opponent's spells like Esper Sentinel, or even cards like Mentor of the Meek, which trigger when other creatures enter the battlefield, all get doubled. Cast Skyclave Apparition and exile 2 things. Cast Solemn Simulacrum and get 2 lands. Cast Karmic Guide and return 2 things to the battlefield. Perhaps 2 things with enter the battlefield effects that each also double. There are a veritable truckload of powerful white and colorless creatures with 2 power or less all the way up the mana curve that are positively begging to have their triggered abilities doubled. Thraben Inspector, other Thraben Inspector, Soul Warden, other Soul Warden, Reverent Hoplite, other Reverent Hoplite. Running out of ideas? You can literally just go on Scryfall and type the following search criteria. And voila! Every creature in Magic's history that fits Delney's criteria, all vying for a slot in your 99. With so many options for little creatures with big dreams and triggered abilities, there are a ton of directions you can go with a Delney Streetwise Lookout deck. Want a low-to-the-ground aggro deck? Delney has you covered. Want a flicker deck? Delney would love to provide. A stacks deck with all your favorite obnoxious hate bears? Go for it, you monster! A creature enter the battlefield-based control deck? Sure, probably. Tashar combo deck? Well, you might as well try. Because virtually your entire army will be little critters, you can also really mess your opponents up. Board wipes like the Battle of Bywater and Expel the Interlopers, which only blow up big things, turn into powerful one-sided wipes as though they were a plague wind. As cool as all this is, the absolute best part about building a Delney Commander deck is that Wizards of the Coast is guaranteed to constantly print more bangers for your deck with every new set they release. And they release a new set every week, feels like. And small white creatures that do cool things are like white's whole deal. And thus, for all those reasons, Delney Streetwise Lookout is the #1 best new commander from Markov's at Karlov Manor. But now it's time for a very important question that many Tolarian Community College professors ask. Did I leave the commander you're most excited about off this list? Don't say Colonel Mustard. Tell me what it is and why you can't wait to build a deck around it in the comments below. Don't say Colonel Mustard. And remember, Ravnica Remastered draft booster boxes are only $139.99, and individual draft booster boxes from Ravnica Remastered are only $3.99 for a limited time only at www.cardkingdom.com/TCC. These prices are lower than what some places are charging for standard nowadays, especially now with play boosters. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit more. Just compare prices. You can shop at your local game store. That's where you go first, but maybe they don't have what you're looking for. So you're kind of like, well, I still want to buy it, right? We can't not spend money, save for the future? What are you, crazy? Just go to www.cardkingdom.com/TCC. Whether it's these incredibly short time only Ravnica Remastered prices or their giant catalog of singles that you should buy, as in buy singles, or just my favorite accessories for Magic the Gathering, cardkingdom.com/TCC, and you'll be helping out the channel when you do.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Unknown Commander. Gavin, I don't know what this is. This is your event?
So I design about 60 or so playtest cards for each one of these. People have never seen before.
What makes a card a playtest card?
They look like this.
Hi everybody, I'm Rachel Weeks. I'm playing the Colossal Dreadmaw.
Hi, my name is George. I am going to be playing Polis, the Planeshifter.
I want to have the honor of playing the first playtest card of the game.
Wow,
And it's
so fast.
Command Power Plants.
What is that?
Rob's gonna love this one.
Oh no. So George,
Okay.
look at my thing and I want to attack you. I'm not scared of the Roman.
Oh, you
Why
should
not?
No,
You should be.
Okay.
I choose a plane at random.
All right.
There is Immerstorm.
You have 7 floating green mana from that?
And you know what I'm gonna do with it, bro?
I'm gonna cast a Colossal
Cast a
Dreadmore.
Foundation Breaker.
Wow.
I mean, a Colossal Dreadmaw.
I'll say that there's not a lot of balance and rigor put into these unknown playtest cards.
Okay, there's no tutors.